while still being respectful to them? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I know a brother, he takes it like a sportsmanship style. What do I mean by sportsmanship style? Whenever his mum or dad get upset, he gets up, he hugs them, he smiles, goes, Wallah, I love you so much. I'm not going to listen to that, but I love you, mum and dad. And you know what, I'm going to do this. The way he approaches his parents, always with a smile, with his pampering, with his beautiful words. And if they do get really upset, he does sit down and he says, look, I know you're upset, mum and dad, but Wallah, I love you so much. I can't obey you this because Allah told me I have to see my cousin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, but. Then he comes back, gets them gifts, and he just does not let them, they can't get upset with him. There's a way to approach, and if you can master that, wallahi, it works, inshallah. Number two, you don't have to obey your parents if what they're asking you to do has no benefit to themselves at all. So there's no personal benefit to them personally. They're just telling you either out of their own whims or their desires, or sometimes it can become control, or just because they want to give you their opinion. So it could be in a good way as well. Son, daughter, for example, don't go into that course. I don't want you to do an engineering course, you've got to do a medicine course. You're not allowed to do a trades skill, you have to go and do, for example, accounting, right? Or they come up to you and say, okay, well, you're not allowed to marry this person, you must marry that person. Over my dead body, it has to be that person. Both for daughters and sons. You are not obliged to obey your parents in doing the things which they are telling you to do, which they personally don't have a benefit to it, and it involves only you. Now, with marrying someone or doing something else, if there is harm that will come upon your family or your parents, then you should listen to them. For example, if you're going to marry someone who's going to cause harm to your parents, such as in certain cultures overseas, maybe not as much here, but certain cultures overseas, marrying a certain person will bring a, what can I say, a disgust of or shame on the parents. For example, somebody's done terrible things and you want to marry that person, and your parents are going to be affected, your family's going to be affected, then they have a right to tell you, don't marry them because of this. But other than that, they're not allowed to force you to marry someone whom you do not want to marry. This is haram, and it's a major sin to force them to do that. Number three, you don't have to obey your parents if it's going to harm you. If it's going to be dangerous or harmful to you. For example, you're driving and your father's with you, and then he says to you, just, cross the red light. Drive at 140 Ks, for example. And you know this is dangerous, or you're probably going to get a ticket, you're probably going to get the police after you, for example. Or they tell you, for example, to, something's going to harm you, your money. They say to you, you must take out of your money and give it to your siblings or to your cousin, and so on. And as a result, you're going to be in hardship, financial hardship, not be able to pay bills, for example, not be able to pay for your courses. If you're going to be harmed financially, you don't have to obey your parents in doing that. Another way that it's harmful is when a parent asks their married son or daughter to go and sort of oblige the spouse. For example, obliges the son's wife to spend on her in-laws. That's not right. That's taking away the rights of other people. Or they oblige the daughter that if you marry this person has to also spend on your parents. These are examples where in Islam it is actually forbidden even from the parents to do so, because this is taking away the rights of other people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given. Which brings me to the topic of money and property. Someone asked me the question, must you spend on your parents? The answer to that is number one. If they are in financial need and their money is not enough for their basic livelihood, then yes, you must spend on them enough for their livelihood. But this is only upon the son, the boys, not the girls, not the daughters. If the daughters do spend, it is out of their own goodwill, it is considered a sadaqah. Number two, if the parents are not in need of financial help, then no, you are not obliged to spend on them. For example, one father said to his son, got his children and said, every month you have to give me an allowance. Even though the father had his own income, he had his own properties, he's got money, and then you get these children and says, you've got to give me an allowance. Islamically, it is not an obligation to do so. And if you have enough, give your father, give your mother out of goodness, out of love, out of compassion, but to force them and to make it a thing in Islam where you are in sin if you don't do that, that is not true. But of course, brothers and sisters, we don't do it out of harshness, we do it out of love. No matter how much you can help your parents, you help them. But what I'm talking about is about parents using these laws to make it like as if we're right on their neck, you know, as if it's like, it's as if I'm putting my child in a position of proving his loyalty to me. Let me see your loyalty. Will you give me this much every month? That's not right. There is a hadith which some people have mentioned to me. They say, didn't the Prophet, peace be upon him, say, "Anta wa maluka li abik"? You and your wealth is for your father. There is a long hadith about that. The hadith is authentic. However, this is where fiqh, jurisprudence comes in. Try to understand what the Prophet, peace be upon him, is saying. The meaning of this hadith is you and your wealth is for your father, meaning this was in relation to a man who said, Ya Rasulullah, my father, he wants to take my money, he wants to use it. He said, you and your money is for your father, meaning your father is allowed to use your money if he's in need of it. Where did I get this? From another hadith. You see, Islam explains itself from different angles. You can't just take one hadith and go with it. You've got to take other areas and other ayat. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates another hadith, which is in Ibn Habban, that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, if the parents are in need of financial help, they are allowed to take from their son's money. And if they don't have a son, from their daughter's money. Their needs. For example, a father needs to pay a bill. He doesn't have any money to pay the bill for his electricity. He needs food. Your mother needs food. They haven't got enough. What do? They're allowed to take from that money. Otherwise, it's not literal. Your parents don't literally own you and your wealth. Otherwise, they will inherit everything. As soon as you die, we can say, well, if your father's still alive, he'll take all of your inheritance. But that's not true. Because in the Quran, inheritance has to be divided. The mother gets a share, the wife gets a share, the children get a share, the grandparents get a share. Had this hadith meant that our fathers own us and our wealth, they'll inherit everything. But Allah did not make it that way.